Welcome into this week's edition of the RSL Insider presented by AT&T. I'm your host, John Kluger, and we're here in the nerve cell, the brain cell. Oh my God, it's Davey Ratchford from marketing, ladies and gentlemen. Davey Ratchford, here where the magic happens in the RSL front offices at Rio Tinto Stadium for this week's edition. Speaking of this week's edition, we will catch up with young midfielder Luis Gil, fresh off his travels from South America with U.S. youth national teams. We'll also talk with Trey Fitzgerald, who will give us a preview of the CONCACAF Group A that RSL will be participating in starting in 2 weeks' time. But first, we head down to Lehigh and Zengo Field, where we catch up with Chris Wingert, Kyle Beckerman, Jason Kreis, and others to get reaction looking ahead to this week's matchup at the Cab in Kansas City against the Wizards.
It's a tough stretch. I mean, 3 games in a week coming up. How do you guys prepare for that?
Do our best to get healthy. We're going to need all 24 guys. And, first we're headed to Kansas City, which is always a tough place to play, and then to Philly, and then back here for another tough game against Columbus. So definitely it's going to be a tough stretch, but we just want to do our best to stay fit and get after it when we get there.
And the opportunity is there with LA struggling a little bit. I mean, that Western Conference first place ranking is there for the taking.
Yeah, for sure. I think all along we've just been talking about trying to keep adding points, and we've done a good job of that so far. We're going to really have to focus one game at a time on this next road trip.
You've been on a pretty good run of form since coming back. 3 goals in 5 games since coming back from South Africa. Just talk about, working yourself back to 100% after, a grueling couple months.
Yeah, it took a little bit to get my legs back and stuff like that. I wasn't feeling fully energized in training and in a couple of the games. But I think this past week leading up to the game that we just had was probably the best week I've had. Felt really good, confident, and had a lot of energy, and showed in the game. And I think as a whole, our whole team had a lot of energy, and we did what we needed to do.
As you go through the Champions League and as the league, MLS continues, how will you juggle, I guess, maybe the priority, you know what I mean, in terms of, will that shift as it goes along depending on circumstances?
Yeah, of course, it's gonna shift based on a little bit based on who your opponent is and where you're playing the match and how long ago the last match was, and there's so many things that go into it. I think that we're going to be best served if we kind of play it one game at a time.
It looked like everybody who you had out on short-term loans is back okay today?
Yeah, they've all gotten back. Luis Gil was with the under-18 national team. He's back. Chris Schuler and Colin Warner spent some time with St. Louis. They're both back. Chris Schuler's got a little bit of an injury though that he picked up in his second match there, or third match there. So that'd be something we'll have to pay attention to over the next week.
What do you think of celebrations? I mean, they seem like they've been muted a little bit. But you guys are the highest scoring team in the league. Nobody really celebrates too much.
You'd love to be in a position where goals are commonplace, right? And it's like, oh, we scored again. Fantastic. Let's move on.
Would it ever get to this scenario where you might actually leave guys home if you know you're not going to use them just to get them some rest so they're ready after that particular stretch?
Yeah, that's a real catch-22 situation, because I think if we're staffed with enough players and enough staff, then you could leave players home because they could be training.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh,
if
sure.
you can leave 8 or 10 guys here, if you have a roster of 28, you could leave 8 or 10 guys here, and you could leave a coach here, and they come out and train and keep them going so that they're ready for the weekend match as opposed to a Wednesday match. But I don't think we're there yet. It'll be a consideration though, especially for that, because the potential is it's either in Mexico City or Panama, and then all the way to Toronto. So it will be something we'll think.
The RSL Insider continues with 3 good minutes for a man that's been hard to catch up with lately, young Luis Gil, midfielder for Real Salt Lake. Luis, thanks for joining us, first of all.
No problem. Happy to be here.
And you've been all over the place, especially since joining Real Salt Lake, not only with the Claret and Cobalt, but with U.S. youth national teams, taking a few trips since joining the squad or becoming a professional in March. What has the experience been like for you as a professional, a young professional with Real Salt Lake, and kind of using that experience and transferring that to the national teams?
Yeah, it's pretty difficult. I mean, coming in as a young guy, as one of the young talents to this team. And I'm obviously trying to show what I got here with these older guys. And it's difficult, speed of play, more physical. But I mean, obviously I benefit from that, and it helps me out throughout my career. And obviously I have to apply that to the national team as well and show them why I'm a part of this team and what this team has helped me become.
The U.S. 18s for both games down in South America against Bolivia and Chile. And you figured prominently in the scoring for both goals in a 2-2 tie against Chile. Let's talk about the competition down there last week. What it was like getting back to playing guys your age.
Yeah, obviously it was pretty hard, us coming in together as a team. We haven't been playing with each other. We just, a bunch of kids just brought together, trained a couple times, and thrown into the game. It was difficult because we had to adjust to each other's styles of play since we're used to each other. And obviously the competition down there is difficult, and the soccer culture is obviously a lot different. And it was pretty tough. They made it hard on us to play against them.
And let's talk about the Chile match. You had a 25-yard free kick lead goal in that match,
Yeah,
and
I
then
was surprised
set
by
up
that
another.
too. I didn't know I had that in me, but yeah, that's part of the game. You got to take advantage of those opportunities because that could make or break games, and that could determine the outcome of the game.
Well, Luis is back with us, and with a crowded schedule between CONCACAF and regular season play, might be getting a few more chances to see young Mr. Gill here compete in the Claret and Cobalt. Luis, thanks for joining us.
No problem. Happy to be here.
Close out this week's edition of the RSL Insider with Trey Fitzgerald, our resident CONCACAF Champions League expert. Thanks for joining us, Trey.
Anytime, John.
And the big news this week is figuring out who Real Salt Lake was actually going to play in our maiden voyage in international competition. And one series decided pretty closely in that regard, another not so much. Tell us who will be joining RSL and Arabe Unido in Group A.
Well, RSL and the Panamanian champion were in Group A all along. We all knew that since the draw earlier this summer. By virtue of Tuesday night's results, Toronto FC, a big win, or big tie, I should say, aggregate win down in Tegucigalpa in Honduras.
Now, there's another RSL tie in this year's tournament. David Horst with the Puerto Rico Islanders, who have made noise in this competition in the past, are doing it once again. Talk about what Puerto Rico went through.
Yeah, I mean, Puerto Rico, they're the giant slayers. They have been. That's the reputation they've earned the last several years in CONCACAF. And, David Horst has taken a lot of grief from RSL fans. And Jason Kreis, Garth Lagerwey decided we need to get this kid game. So they loaned him down to Puerto Rico back in mid-March. He's on a season-long loan. And you can see the improvement in his game. He's getting 90 minutes week in, week out. And he was just great in the games, especially the game at the Home Depot Center. Header off a corner kick set up the first goal. Clears a potential equalizer off the line 10, 15 minutes later. Puerto Rico goes on in the shocking win 4-1 at LA. And then last night in Puerto Rico, LA does get the 2-1 win, but on aggregate, Puerto Rico goes through 5-3. And now Puerto Rico is in Group D, the only group in CONCACAF Champions League without an MLS team. And Puerto Rico will be up against Toluca, Olympia, and then the winner of Thursday night's game between FAS and Zelaju.
Talking more about MLS teams, Columbus and Real Salt Lake automatic qualifiers. Already talked about Toronto getting through. One more team getting through Seattle. Talk about their series with Metapan.
Seattle goes down to Metapan, and they get a great header, roughly the 75th minute from their new designated player Alvaro Hernandez, and great little header that got through. And he's paying immediate dividends. Soggy, wet field, difficult to play. Freddie Montero looks like he's found his form again over the last couple of weeks in every competition. Seattle's played friendlies, MLS, and now in CONCACAF. So 4 MLS teams advancing into the 2010-11 CONCACAF Champions League. That's the biggest number ever for the domestic leagues.
And that will do it for this week's edition of the RSL Insider presented by AT&T. Remember, 2 upcoming games for Real Salt Lake in short order, beginning on the weekend, Saturday night, 6:30 p.m. kickoff between Real Salt Lake and the Kansas City Wizards from Community America Ballpark. Then next Wednesday, RSL takes its maiden voyage to PPL Park in Chester, Pennsylvania, take on the Philadelphia Union. That match starts at 5:30 p.m. Both games can be out live on KUSG 2.2 and Comcast 111. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you on next week's edition of The Insider.